Welcome to the Black Father's table, where fathers restore, renew, and revive. This is the Black Father's table, where we rise, where we're able, breaking cycles, building kings, healing hearts and family trees. This is the Black Father's table. Standing strong, we stay faithful. From the pain, we create legacy. And it starts at the table.
Hey. Welcome to the Black Father's table. Tonight we're going to be talking about raising daughters. Let me ask you a quick question. Does your daughter know her worth? I mean, because of you or in spite of you? The first man your daughter ever learns to love is you. Not what you say, but how you show up, how you speak, how you listen, and how you treat her. But most importantly, how you treat her mother. And if we're being honest, some of us taught our daughters what love is, and some of us taught them what to tolerate. So today, we're not just talking about raising daughters. We're talking about who they become. Because of us or in spite of us. Tonight, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Theron Hobbs. How's it going, Theron?
Good. How are you, Randy?
Man, I can't complain about nothing. God's been good. Hey, so let's go ahead and jump into this. You know, a daughter sees herself through her father first. So let's discuss some of the emotional affirmations and the impact fathers have on daughters. So, I mean, obviously, it's one of those things where like it says, we are the first example of what a man is to them. Right. So, every action that we take, and how we treat her, their siblings, mom, friends, whatever the case is, they're modeling after us. So what do you think is the biggest thing that they're grabbing?
I know my daughters were younger. They paid attention to everything that we did, that we used to do. Kids, they mimic everything that you do. And they pay attention, especially to how you treat their mother, how you interact with other people. They're very aware of that, because the way you treat someone, they kind of mimic that. Even with their mothers, I know when if you've ever been in a conversation with their mother in front of the kids, they get emotional the same as she would. They kind of mimic her. And they also too take their side. So you have to make sure you teach the values, be an example for them up front, early on, set those foundations, teach them their value up front. And two, I think this is a double-edged sword. You said, do they learn their value because of us and in spite of us? I think both, because we're not perfect, so we're gonna make some mistakes, and so they still gonna learn from our mistakes as well. Because especially when you're not in the household with them at the time, so they're gonna pick up some things because you weren't there to protect or guard or to nurture them in certain areas.
Right, and I think I'm making some pushback on this, or some flack, whatever the case is. It is what it is for men. But we got to understand too, as much as we complain about the choices that young women make, they make some of these choices because of the influence or the lack thereof from fathers.
Absolutely.
And we can dance around it as much as we want to, or whatever the case is, but the fact of the matter is, they learn what to tolerate, what to put up with, and what they want to model after. And a lot of times, if you look around, these little girls making some bad decisions and choices, and men, Some, at that point, we have to start looking in the mirror. For one,
Absolutely.
what type of examples are we setting?
Right.
And on the flip side of that, which is a whole other conversation, but what kind of young boys are we raising?
Right.
So we have to be very cognizant about, things that we say, even if we're sitting down watching television. Some little comments that you might make towards a woman in a revealing type of outfit, or whatever the case is. Our little girls are listening to that. So it's not just their friends in schools that they're paying attention to. When they hear boys talk about, girls in skirts and whatever the case is, they're listening to dad too. When you're talking to his buddies, about the young lady that just walked across that screen, they're absorbing all of that.
Oh yeah, they're watching our expressions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they are. So we have to be very mindful about every move that we make, like you say, every expression that we make, and definitely the words that are coming out of our mouths as it relates to women, because they are soaking that up. I can remember, I have two daughters, Brianna, the oldest, and my bonus daughter, Leah, and two different. If you could be on different ends of the spectrum, they would be on different ends of the spectrum. But I tried my hardest, to try to be the best example, for my girls growing up. And I tell you, like I said, I made mistakes, and I saw some of those mistakes in some of the boys. And there's almost, I kind of, I was upset with myself. I said, well, shoot, I guess I didn't really, give the best example of what to look for when you're looking for a man to care for you, but a lot of things I wish I could do differently, outside of just going to work and coming home. Those nights when she needed when either one of them needed a shoulder to cry on, and they needed some emotional support from a male, and I was absent. Not necessarily running around the streets, but I was absent. I was at work, busy, thinking that did all, related to, to bills getting paid and lights on and food in the refrigerator, but those stolen moments that I missed, I think affected them, as they grow up and started to make choices in relationships.
Yeah, that's true, because a lot of times too, your daughter will choose a man like a father because that's somebody she love and respect. And so,
Right.
like you said, if you're not carrying yourself in the right manner, they're gonna choose you. So you have to ask yourself,
Good or
am I the
bad?
kind of, good or bad? Am I the kind of man that I want my daughter to choose?
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, look in the mirror. And if the answer is no, then you got work to do. You got some conversations that you need to have and some adjustments that you need to make.
Yeah, and I guess I should have gotten a hint. My firstborn being a little girl. And I just immediately thought, okay, God, you're trying to pay me back for all the for all the headaches I caused me in my life. Now I have to now I have to live that now. And I have to really try to be careful about what's going on, because I was a mess.
Well, he must have been good, because I have 4 daughters. My son was number 5, so I must have been really bad. I must have been terrible.
If that has anything to say for it, then I guess so. Yeah, I don't even want to hear about it. if that's what the punishment was. I guess you and a couple other partners I got that had all girls. Like, goodness gracious. Because it's one of those things, man. You try to, and that's what I don't understand. We can kind of bounce back to this in a second, but in talking to a lot of men and seeing men interact like that, they're like, what if that was your daughter?
Right.
We're not even going to talk about your mom or your sister, but your little girl that you're running around circles. Like, what if that was, your child?
Yeah,
so you have to kind of put yourself, yeah.
Especially when they're close to your child's age, daughter's age. You see guys like, are you serious, bro?
Yeah.
It's crazy. What if somebody hides your daughter like that? You have a fit. You want to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be about to jump on him right then and there. But in your daughter's absence, then you're chasing her little friends or somebody around her age. So
Right.
yeah, you got to get it
Yeah.
together.
I remember I had a conversation with my daughter's ex-husband one time, and they were going through some stuff, and I just simply asked him, "What if that was one of my granddaughters?"
Mm.
And he froze. I said, "So you have to think about that when you're making decisions, because you think it's cool for you to be making these kind of decisions, but what if someone was making that decision with your daughters?
Right.
You've been ready to string somebody up." Yeah.
Absolutely.
So think about that moving forward. I mean, you need to think about that moving forward. It could be your child or your granddaughter.
To your mother
And
or
if
your
you
sister.
yeah, you see, let's have some empathy about some of the decisions that we make. When it relates to females, because we got little girls running around here that are watching, and that eventually going to be in harm's way. And if you think it's cool now, you can't switch up. When they get of age and somebody they're dealing with is acting a nut, you can't switch up then,
No.
because you were doing the same thing.
Yeah, the foundation already been set.
Say that again.
Example. So the example's already been set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So because it's hard. I mean, because as men, we want to be soft, we want to be structured, we want to be providers, we want to do all this other kind of stuff, and it's really, really hard to be a girl dad. I mean, and I guess you have a real good perspective of that because you got four.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So being a girl dad, I mean, it's something special within itself. So how did you navigate a lot of that, especially with four different personalities? Because I know each one of them are their own individual woman. I mean, they're grown women now. I mean, so that had to be, a I don't want to say crazy dynamic, but it had to be a wild dynamic to try to deal with all, those four different personalities.
Oh, most definitely. Even now, they're adults. They all, like you said, totally different personalities. All our conversations are different. Believe me. Even when they were young, my daughters and I, we had like raw conversations about stuff because, like I said, maybe God was punishing me by giving me four daughters from my past. So
Right.
what I did and what I do now, I have raw conversations with my daughters about, some of the things that I did. I just have it straight up, and I just say, I'll tell them, I share my stories with them about things I did, relationships I had, and how I acted in certain ways and stuff like that. And I told them, I said, so I'll tell you, guys gonna do this, guys gonna do that. This is how they're gonna approach you and whatever. And they come back and say, Dad, he did exactly what you said he's gonna do. I said, I know, because I was that guy, but I was better than that guy. I was better. I was better than he was. I mean, I was worse. I mean, I was good, but I was bad.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can share. I'll be honest with them about stuff. I don't try to sugarcoat it. I don't try to act like I had a perfect life, that I was a Boy Scout, because I wasn't. So I don't ever project that perfect persona that a lot of people don't share with their kids, and then they wonder why there's such a disconnect. So I'll be honest with them, because sometimes they say, Dad, there's too much, So it was kind of funny. My daughter, she's gonna get mad at me. And I was telling my daughter, I talked to him too. I was telling her, well, I'm not gonna tell her. She'll kill me. But I was telling them too. I said, never put your hand on a man and not expect that to be some repercussions. Don't hit him, not expect him to hit you back. It's sometimes it's just natural reflex, but you can't do that. Keep your hands to yourself. I said, even though you hit him, he hit you, we still gonna have a problem, but just do your best. Keep your hands to yourself.
Right.
Because you always hear, it takes a weak man to hit a woman, but it takes a stupid woman to hit a man, and I expect something to happen. So, don't dismiss about your part in it, their part in with it, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Happens. So that's the first thing. You a weak man. No, you're kind of weak, crazy, irresponsible woman.
If you get ready to put your hands on somebody, you need to walk away. And that goes with both parties.
Absolutely. But you can't
Both
just do it as if there's not going to be any repercussions of it. So you just can't do that. So I always taught my daughters that. And so far, so good. So far, so good. They're really good.
And to add to that too, I think it's really important that young ladies understand that, because you don't want to put the other men in your life that you care about in a situation that may end up in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be cognizant of that, because you don't want to, especially if you got brothers or dad that with a short fuse, and you already know what's going to happen. So why would you put them in that type of situation? Where somebody could either get hurt or worse, killed.
Right.
And then if somebody end up in jail because something that you could have walked away from.
Right. And
I understand that there are going to be
and on the flip side of that too,
situations that
as
you have to
fathers,
deal with. Go ahead.
yeah, I said on the flip side too, as fathers, we can't be going around telling our daughters, such and such happened, I'll kill him, I'll do this, because when something
Right.
actually happens, then they're not going to come and tell you. They're going to take that abuse because they trying to protect you.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware of how you talk about certain things. So you can't have that quick fuse you just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be aware of that. So just because they're listening and they're trying to protect you, and you should be protecting them. But don't go around saying what you're gonna do to somebody. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, because they will, close up on you.
Yeah, because I know we've grown. That our younger days, we'll be ready to ride out real quick.
At the drop of a dime. All we had to do is get the word. I'm on the way. I am on the way. And speaking of which, that adds a dynamic for you too. And yeah, mine with the two girls, in the home with me was a little different. Although I was, spent a lot of time at work, or whatever the case is, but you having to co-parent through a lot of these situations with 4 girls.
Yes.
And with sometimes, for lack of a better term, mothers that didn't want to necessarily work with you and making sure that everything was straight up. Having to navigate the co-parenting piece of that, trying to raise, as a strong father, trying to raise Black girls, and you're not in a home.
The toughest part of that was their safety, because what happened was a lot of times the issue that I had with my kid's mom, especially when we weren't together, and then my other 2 kids' mother, it was that when we were together, they were very strict on what the kids could do, how these boundaries and stuff like that. But once we weren't together anymore, all of a sudden they're allowed to go spend out at everybody's house every weekend or here and there. So, and I had an issue with that. I said, because I don't know these people, and these are girls, so you just can't let our daughters go to people's house all the time, and we don't know them, and other men are there, or whatever. So you don't know, even though you think you know, but you don't know. So that's the only issue I had. So how they just got real relaxed with allowing my daughters to go spend the night over other people's house all the time. That's one of the things that I struggle with. And then when we bump heads, because they want to drop the kids off so they go out and kick. So, and I had issues with that.
Yeah, call me if you want to go out. I'll come get them.
Yeah.
If you want to do all that, but don't just go drop them off randomly at somebody's house. Now you about to put me in a bad situation if something happened to them.
Absolutely, yeah. I had a few times where they would bring them by, just last minute stuff. They thought they were disrupting something. No, I love my kids. Drop them off. We cool. I'll make some adjustments. And then there were times they try to do it in spite of you being available to do that. So just to punish you or whatever.
Trying to throw a monkey wrench in your situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I get that, and that's because you never know who's going to end up at somebody's house.
Right.
It may seem innocent initially. Even if the little girls got brothers.
Right. Yeah.
It's not necessarily even somebody, an adult male or wherever the case is coming out. If they got brothers, it's something that you got to watch out for. Because there's some little man and boys out there. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, females.
Yeah.
Females, older sisters, aunts. So you never know. Now it's a different world right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it might not be as different we think it is. Just this time, just now, we got so much. The technology changed things. It exposes. It creates a lot more exposure. So
right.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the protection.
Yes.
And I think a lot of us as men, we it's hard for us to separate protection from control. That is a very, very fine line from, the protection to the overprotection that turns into control, which in turns down the line will turn into resentment. How how was that for you managing, that line from saying, hey, because it's easy to say I'm doing this because I love you, but kids don't hear that. All they
Right.
hear is you don't want me to do it.
Right.
So what kind of advice, or how did you handle, what kind of advice would you give fathers that are trying to walk that line between protecting and controlling?
Well, one of the techniques I learned a long time ago was as a kid how certain ways your parents talked to you or said things I didn't like. So what I do, still do, I'll ask my kids a million questions. Ask them a question, and they'll answer. And when they answer, they know that's the decision they need to make. So, for instance, I'll say, so if you're going over, would you do this? Would you go over somebody's house? Would you allow your child to go to someone's house that they didn't know? You feel comfortable with that, and you don't know the parents. You don't have any information on them. Would you feel comfortable allowing them to spend the night? And they'd be like, no. I said, okay, so I feel uncomfortable allowing you to go spend the night at a stranger's house that I don't know, have a relationship with. I don't know their background or anything. I would feel uncomfortable. So I try to put them in this situation, ask them questions where they can answer it themselves. That way, you're not making a decision. You're allowing them to make it themselves by guiding them into making the right decisions. Because if you tell them, like you said, now it's saying you're controlling. So I always try to ask a bunch of questions to make them answer the questions so they can make the right decisions. So that's how I do. I still do them like that now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's good because that'll help develop confidence. They're making decisions on their own,
Yes.
and they're actually creating their own voice. At the same time, because like you said, you're just putting it back into their plate, back into their lap. What would you do if?
Yeah.
And that kind of takes, that I can do it now because that takes the sting out of it. That takes the pointing the finger at dad to the point where now I got to go look in the mirror to, oh, wow, man, I really, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a good driving force, even for future, for future decisions that they're going to have to make. Yeah, I didn't think about that years ago.
I do it now. Even if they're adults, they'll ask me something, and I ask them a million questions and make them answer their own question. When you say things out loud, it's a lot different than you said in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're saying something stupid in your mind, you said out loud, it's not even worse.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna argue with that one. Yeah. That's a good technique right there. I mean, I like that. I think it'll be very effective if a lot more people use it versus just being the hammer and just saying no because I said so.
Right.
Put the onus on them. Even though a lot of them still probably going to come up with something crazy, but like, well, no, I would let them go, but it's different.
Yeah.
Well, it ain't different.
And what it does too, it drives your kids to have a conversation with them. So it's bringing you a little closer and creating trust between the two of you too, because you're having a conversation now that you normally wouldn't have. So and you learn more about your kids too. You learn a little more about what's going on because once you start asking questions, they'll actually say something and share something with you that you weren't even talking about, or something, or you'll understand their thought process behind things.
Right.
So you get to see them in a different light. So you really get a different view of your kids. So yeah, do them like they did us when they were little. Ask you a million questions. Flip the script.
Oh
Flip the script. Now it's our turn.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That makes sense. Asking the questions. Turn it over. Yeah. Turn thinking back to them, put it in their plate, and let them make the move, make the forward decision.
Yeah.
About what needs to take place next. That's what's up. That's a good one right there. That is a good one. And that brings me to another question I had. I guess I should have backtracked this one. In co-parenting we discussed this in the last episode a little bit, but in co-parenting, when you're not seeing eye to eye with mom, or even without co-parenting, because I can answer this myself too. There were situations to where, Teresa and I, we really, really made a concerted effort not to ever have disagreements in front of the kids.
Right.
Now, obviously, we're human. Sometimes things are going to happen. But one thing I was very, very cognizant of, and I know you've done this too because you've discussed it before. I'd never ever let them hear me. Well, I've never done it in the first place, but to call Teresa out of her name or to say anything derogatory about her. Never making it personal outside of what we were having our disagreement about. When you're constantly getting bricks thrown at you and you got little girls and your mind is telling you one thing, and in the back of your throat, you got some other stuff that you want to come out your mouth and say. But even with little boys, it's effective, but you really, really have to be careful about stuff like that because little girls internalize that.
Right.
How did you manage to be able to maintain your composure? Besides, I know you're a Christian man, so I know your foundation of faith keeps you from acting out of pocket. But on those days that you're human, how did you manage to protect their feelings over your own, even when in those difficult times?
Well, first I had to have restraint emotionally. Had to be emotionally mature. So when things start getting out of hand, I would just pretty much say, "Can we come back to this tomorrow when we're both in a better state of mind, so we're a little calmer, so we can make sure we make the right decision and try to be in alignment, be on the same page." So even when they were throwing bricks, I never called them out their names, anything like that. I just stayed calm. Might have seen it in my face, my facial expressions, but my kids never heard me call their mothers out their name or anything like that. But if it got heated, I'd say we need to table this. We'll come back to this tomorrow, or talk to us when we're both a little calmer, so we can make a good decision. So that's what I did. Because even sometimes I had to shut it down because even I had the point where they I got in my face, I got pushed and all this trying to so entice me into a physical altercation, and so I've walked away, stuff like that. So but yeah, sometimes you just got to walk away, shut it down. Let's come back with a little calmer. You're not gonna always get everything you want, but what I do know of my kids' mothers is that they love them. We all have flaws, but at the end of the day, they're good. They're good mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the one thing I did understand, I trust that they make good decisions. Like I said, the only issue I ever had with them about certain things about the safety part about letting go of people's houses and stuff like that. Other than that, my kids have good mothers.
Okay.
I have my daughters, man. Nobody's been to jail. My daughter's just pregnant now, but she's engaged. She's supposed to be getting married in December, but now it's been pushed back. But and she'll be 34.
Wow.
So I have great kids, man, and they're respectable. That happened because they have good mothers, they have good parents. So it takes both.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I'll trust the decision that they make if we don't agree or whatever. If she does something, if they do it without not knowing, most times it's not going to be anything. It's not going to be anything to the detriment of my kid. Even though I might not agree, but it's not going to be the detriment of my kid. I do trust him that much.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. That's what's up then. That's good. That's good that y'all have that that they had good mothers, and not
Yeah, because we good and perfect to different things. None of us are perfect, but
Right.
I know they love their daughters. Not going to put them in a situation that's going to cause them to harm anyway, not intentionally anyway.
Right. Okay. Well, that's what's up. Then at least it was, you didn't have to battle those things.
Yeah.
But this brings me to another something else when you're dealing with mothers and how and emotions and stuff like that. How did the dating things pan out for you? How did you handle dating when they first started dating? How did you handle that? I know how I lost it pretty much, but
You know,
you know.
to be honest, when my oldest two started dating, I actually was in Nashville. So they were back in Atlanta. So, but we talked. Like I said, we had conversations about guys early on about what to expect,
Mhm.
stuff like that. So they were prepared. So about certain things. And so, but for the most part, my daughters they did pretty good. They never had any um, guys who were uh, drug dealers or gang members, stuff like that. Most of the guys that they dated were pretty clean cut guys, athletes, smart, but the
Mhm.
normal guys. Guys should try a little sneaky stuff, but they didn't have any guys who were really rough around the edges. So in that regard, that was pretty good. I never had. Did I have to jack anybody up or pull out my gun? Anybody? No, no, I didn't. I didn't. And so, but their mother, when I was in Nashville, my kid's mother here, she let me know a little bit. My daughter shared with me too, because my daughter, they're daddy girls. That's my oldest, she's
Right.
daddy girl, younger daddy girl. Taryn, she's kind of in between, but they share stuff with me. They'll let me know stuff, because they want your approval, they want they want affirmation, so they share stuff. And then my younger two, I was here and missed some things because their mother intentionally didn't didn't tell me about the first date and stuff like that. So that was a stolen
Right.
moment. But for the most part, they did as well because they shared stuff with me. So I met pretty much all the guys. There might have been a few I didn't meet, but the main guys I did meet. And so they were, like I said, same thing. Pretty decent guys. They didn't have nobody rough around the edges, wilding out, drinking and driving crazy or selling drugs or any gangs. So everybody was pretty clean cut guys, good athletes and smart. So that was apparent. And pretty much all the guys that they dated were kind of smart or good athletes, a combination of
Mhm.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was no, I didn't, serve any time for hurting anybody or no restraining order or
Wow,
anything like that.
that's good. That's commendable. That's very commendable. That's that's commendable. Yeah, it's funny because in high school, there were a couple that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Um, the polite in your face and hi, Mr. Milner, da da da, and I can see the snake written all over your forehead. I've been there before. I've done this. I've been there, done this.
So that was me.
Um, yeah, and it was hard because you try to tell your children, try to warn them, but it goes back to that I missed the boat on a lot of stuff because I was that dad that it was because I said so. You don't need to be talking to him. Why? Because I said so. He don't get why, daddy. But and my thing was, but I wasn't there to give that emotional piece that they were looking for.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So and I missed that because there was some look when you're looking for male attention and
Right.
somebody gives it to you, it seems like the best thing in the world.
Right.
And I missed that boat about being there emotionally for my girls,
Mm.
and I regret that because they made some bad decisions. Not anything detrimental. They're both still here. They just they make decisions that 16, 17, 18-year-old girls are going to make. They
Right.
just made some bad decisions. But it just so if I have to one bit of advice that I could give any father when you're dealing with young girls, young women, teenagers, is try to be as emotionally supportive as you possibly can,
Right.
and take your emotions out of it. Um, because we tend to get into the fight or flight mode, and everything is fight. And everything isn't meant to be a battle with your children. Sometimes you just got to talk some stuff through and listen. I was a bad listener. If it was something I didn't want to hear, conversation was probably going to be over with. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, I was a terrible listener. I try to be better now, not that they're adults, but at that time, like I said, I thought I had the answers, but nobody had taught me anything. So I thought I was passing down, some good knowledge, but as ET always say, I wasn't as sweet as I thought I was. So, but you live and learn. But yeah, I would encourage all fathers, if you can be there, not if, make it a concerted effort to be there emotionally for your girls. Your boys need emotional support too, but your girls need something a little bit different.
Absolutely.
And they need to see,
what I did with my daughters, man, I took them on dates. Took them to father-daughter dances and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I made sure, especially on their birthdays. On the birthdays, everybody, went on a date, just the two of us, and had dinner, went shopping. And so you gotta teach them what a man looks like and how they should be treated. So that's what I did. I've always done that. And what I've always done, man, I hug my girls, kiss my girls. Before my girls get in the car with me before they get out, got to kiss them on the cheek. Even now as adults, same thing. Before they got in the car, I give them a kiss on the cheek. And so even with that, even now, I hug and kiss my son. I hug and kiss my dad. So you got to show that affection to them. And so I've always done that because my mother's like that. My mother always is a hugger and kisser. My mother's side of the family is like that, and so that's how I grew up like that, man. So I've always done it with my kids, and so even to this day now, when they see each other, they hug and kiss on each other. And so when you do that, you show them that affection. They don't have to look for it anywhere from anyone else.
Yeah.
And like I said, take them on dates, spend time with them. Then you have those conversations with them. They'll feel comfortable having this conversation with you. So yeah,
I missed that boat too because I wish I spent a lot of time in the car dealership. I keep saying I wish, but but it was what it was. I did what I thought I could do. I'm not going to keep beating myself up over it. But I missed those kind of opportunities. Those first dates and stuff like that.
It's not too late.
I showed them those with what was to be expected. It's not, and we try to do better now. But then it was just like I said, as long as I was paying the bill, I was the best dad in the world.
Understood.
But it is what it is. So I have to you have to be more constant. That is really, really good. And I'd love to see when dads are doing that, the father-daughter dances and the recitals and stuff like that. It warms my heart to see men actually being girl dads, and catering to those young ladies' needs, so that way, somebody the first time somebody tells me they're pretty, they don't lose it, but I didn't grow up in an atmosphere that was that touchy-feely kind of stuff. I did make it an effort, that anytime I speak to my kids, they never leave my presence or conversation without me telling them I love them.
Right.
That I learned over time that I could do that, but just I didn't grow up with a lot of the physical affection. So it's kind of hard to pass it on when you're not used to it yourself. But those chains have to be broken,
Right.
and so that's why we try having these kind of conversations so that some men can understand that it may not have been a part of your life, but doesn't mean that it can't be a part of your children's life.
Right.
So we be a little bit more a lot more cognizant, more intentional about doing that and building those relationships so they can, like you said, come and talk to you about those sensitive subjects that they wouldn't ordinarily, because they know that first dad's going to listen. He may be upset or whatever the case is, but first he's going to listen. The other way around, because then all that's going to do is create resentment and them not wanting to talk to you about anything. And then by the time you find out something, you're about to go to jail and help anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Even now, my kids are adults. I still on their birthday still go on dates, out to dinner, individually. They still want the individual time. And then whenever I call, say, y'all, let's do this, they're ready to go. So what make me feel good is that even my daughters being have two in their 30s and the other two in their mid and late 20s, and my son who's 23 as well, they love hanging out with dad. And I think that's
Mhm.
pretty cool because most times when they become teenagers, stuff like that, there's distance. But
Right.
because we keep that conversation going and we still talk and spend time together, so it still it goes on, carries over from the foundation that was set early on. It carries over. So and I really appreciate that, and I don't take it for granted because the best gift you can ever give me is spending time with my kids and see them smile. There's nothing else you can give me that could top that. No money, no nothing. Just to be with them and see them smile and they're happy.
Right. Well, that's what's up. And you successfully done, things that most men would have broke most men. I get a lot of uh, feedback in some of the videos that I do, and men, well, no, I can't do that, and I'm not going to do that, and she's been lying on me, F them, and this and that and that, but you have to follow through. You have to fight through it. I mean, if your kids are worth it, you,
Absolutely.
you have to you have to fight through it, and they are worth it. Um, to get through those type of situations, because the last thing you want to do is lose. That's your legacy.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
saying those that's the place where your grandchildren are going to come from. You know what I'm saying? So why would you not want to nurture those relationships? When you have an opportunity to, regardless of what the adversaries are. Be
Yeah.
it a person or courts or wherever the case is, to be able to make sure that you stay a part of your children's lives, especially in times that we live right now, with everything going on with you know with all the attacks in our community. It's so very, very important, right now, that we're pouring into our kids and teaching them, first the value of family and of community, because in a little while we're really going to have to find out, we're going to find out, we're all going to we all we got.
Right. Right.
And we got to build some strong families to make sure our communities are strong, so that we can be able to stand back to back and fight, the things that are about to, that are around the corner. So it's
Yeah.
very, very important that we, take that mantle and take that charge that God gave us as Black men and fathers, to make sure that we're raising strong men and women, to help carry our legacies on.
Right. Yeah. We got to remember too. One day, somebody have to take care of you.
That part
Somebody have
too.
to take care of you. So you might want to make sure you nurture those relationships with your kids. And yeah, because I tell my kids all the time, I said, one day you guys can be all you have. So I make sure I tell
Mhm.
them they got to stay close, and they're pretty close. They're really close. I think they talk on the phone every Friday night. They all get on a Zoom call and
Okay.
FaceTime, whatever they do. And right, so I'm very thankful and proud of that. They're really close.
That's what's up.
But
That's
the
what's up.
one thing I never said it was perfect because I had times like you that I missed stuff when I worked at Delta, and I worked all those crazy hours and stuff, and where I was while I was either at Christmas in the morning or missed it, or not there at night. So it was times I missed a lot of things, but I made sure I took a lot of pictures and did a lot of picture taking and stuff like that, recording things like that because I've heard too, well, your daddy wasn't there, but nah, I got evidence. Got evidence that I was there. I wasn't everything, but I was there. I was present. So and they know too. So because sometimes they forget and you pull that out and say, oh yeah, you were there. So just make sure you take a lot of pictures, a lot of videos and stuff like that, and just make the necessary adjustments. Father first mindset. Take the emotions out. Don't carry that baggage. Keep dragging that baggage around with you. Let it go. You know, you really don't read. You really don't need, closure. You just need to move forward. That's the closure. Moving forward is the closure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, because you spend your life, you know, trying to get closure, and those days keep churning by when you could just
Yeah,
move on. I mean, it's not going to
yeah,
change anything,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Just to say, okay, just for both of y'all to say, okay, yeah, this happened, but it's not going to change anything. It's not going, you know,
yeah.
repair the pains and replace that time
Right.
that's been
Yeah,
lost. Man, just go ahead and just move on, and value the time that you have left versus excuse me, versus what's already passed away, passed
right,
by.
right.
Okay, just we can get ready to close out here in a few minutes, but I just got a couple more things I want to touch on. Before you had when you found out that you're going to be a father, and you found out that I'm not sure if you knew beforehand or when she got here. When you found out it was going to be a girl, your first child, what was the first thing popped in your mind?
Well, mine was unique. I my kid's mother and my daughter's mother and I had broken up, and so I hadn't seen her in a while. And so um, someone told me that she was pregnant. I said, okay, well, cool. And so, I called and asked her. She said, yeah, I'm pregnant. She said, it's not yours. So I was like, cool. And so my daughter, by the time I found out that she had had a baby, and my daughter was probably about 3 months old, maybe.
Hmm.
And her uncle and aunt called me and said, "I know my sister told you this wasn't your baby, but it's your baby." And so I was prepared when I found out I had a daughter. She was here, so I didn't have
Wow.
any, I didn't have time to the emotions to build up. She was like here, so like when I went first time I met her, her uncle had called me and said, "Can you stop by? Would you come by the house?" He didn't tell me for what. So when I got there, he was holding my daughter. She was crying, and
Hmm.
when she heard my voice, she stopped crying and looked at me and reached for me. And she grabbed my finger and won't let it go and just kept staring at me. He said, "I told you that was your daughter. I told you it's your baby."
Wow.
And so that's how I met that's how I met my daughter. Yeah. And so that was it. And it changed me. What changed me, man, I didn't never understand the true meaning of unconditional love till I had her. And my
Wow.
focus, everything shifted. Everything became about her. I made so many adjustments, man. I started working hella overtime. Uh, Everything was centered around her. Every chance I got, I wanted to be with my daughter. So weekends or whatever, man. If my mom wanted to go out do something, I did not care. Give me my baby. Give my baby.
Right.
So that was it. And that, man, I was, she was a chick magnet too now because I put in the stroller, man. We down at Piedmont Park. We were down at Piedmont Park, and Demetrius had DJ, and we were down at Piedmont Park. They were chick magnets, boy.
But he's so
But
pretty. Mm.
so but yeah, when that's how I met my daughter. She was already here.
Wow.
Yeah, but it changed. It changed everything, man. Everything for me. Everything became centered around her.
I can dig it. I remember when Francine when she left, both of her, we were in the Marine Corps. Francine, my Brianna's and Randall's mother, um, we were both in the Marine Corps. She was getting ready to. She had just got orders to Japan, and we found out she was pregnant before she was leaving. But didn't know. We didn't know if it was a boy or girl. Back in '92, that wasn't a thing to be able to do that. So um, it was funny because she had left to go to Japan that I want to say it was August September time frame, and she left to go to Japan. I was back here in the States, and in the weekend that she was born, I was actually in Norfolk hanging out with a couple of my partners for my birthday. It was my birthday weekend, and it wasn't like times were different back then. It wasn't a cell phone and social media where you could actually pick up.
Mm.
So I had actually called her office, called over to Japan to the office, and they told me that she had gone, that she was in labor and that she was on her way to the hospital birth, and then they called me later on and let me know that I'd had a little girl, and
Yeah.
by coincidence and God's grace, she was born. Brianna was born on my birthday,
Wow.
and that was that was the best, still is the best birthday present that I've ever received, was having my daughter born on my birthday. And the ironic part about it was January 31st in Japan. It was the 30th here in the States, but it was the 31st in Japan. And so that's what's on the birth certificate and everything. So yeah, that was, the highlight of my year. That year I turned 23 years old and had my baby girl, born on my birthday. I still got those pictures that Fran sent me, after she was born. And I get it, because it did change a lot of things. It was scary though, because she was overseas and I was here, and trying to get that, we wasn't married, and trying to deal with that kind of stuff in the Marine Corps, in the military is a little different. But nevertheless, they made it back here, and I remember that, when she was a little baby and I'd come from work and she'd be crawling and meet me at the door, on her knees. And I remember those times when she was a baby like it was yesterday. Such good times. But yeah, man, those little girls, they'll do something to you.
Oh yeah.
That you're not expecting, especially when you used to running around and stuff like that. So
It'll make you a little softer, and more gentler. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, and then on the opposite end of that spectrum too. I mean, it'll make you, it'll make you want to hurt somebody, that stuff like that you've never really thought about, but you hurt somebody over them little people.
Absolutely. Without hesitation. Yeah.
So, if you would give a bit of advice to a young man right now, or not even a young man, to any man with a girl, with a daughter, what would you tell him that she deserves the most from him?
She deserves your time. Give him much time as possible. Love on him. Have conversations with him. Just spend as much time with him as possible, and be the best example of what type of man you would want her to marry. Be the best father you can. Just be present. Be engaged. And just allow your baby to allow you to be more gentler and kinder. Allow her to allow them to soften you up. Let them soften you up. And don't be afraid to, do things differently. Like, go when they get older, go to the nail salon with them. Y'all go to the nail salon, you get your nails done. Don't get no polish on there now. Get clear polish, no red or whatever. Don't get,
good
I'm not advocating that you get color on there clear, but you can take your daughter to the nail salon and stuff like that. And you can, and take them to the practices and whatever, and just be there. And listen to them and play. If we played T and all that stuff and dolls and all that stuff, man. I've done all that stuff, man. Easy bake ovens and all that stuff, man. And watched. I remember when Gianna was. She was probably about 3 or 4. It was one year. The 49ers were playing Super Bowl. I can't remember who they were playing. I don't know if the Bengals or whatever. Anyway, man, Gianna loved Lion King. Man, I spent that day upstairs, my parents' house, with Gianna, where everybody's downstairs watching Super Bowl. I was like, my baby watching Lion King over and over and over again. And you know what? And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Right.
Except with her watching Lion King. And with her hugging on me, and we just sitting there watching or whatever she wanted to do. I sat there with my baby and watched Lion King.
Yeah, because you can catch the game on a replay.
It wouldn't even, I didn't even do that. It wasn't even that important. It was all about her. We spent time with her. Yeah.
That's what's up. If I had to tell somebody something, it would be something similar to that. Just spend the time. Stop trying to be perfect.
Right.
Because that's not going to happen. But like you said, the biggest thing is being present and keeping an open ear. If there was some things that I could change, there was 2 things that I could change if I could go back and change them. That would be being more present, And even when I was there physically, I mean, being present emotionally, not just there in body, but in their mind and spirit as well. And being attentive, notice to pay attention to those mood swings. If those mood swings, you see them, then you be that softening ear, like you said, let them soften you. You be that softening, baby, what's wrong? Come sit down and talk to daddy about it. And I think that's going to go a long way in your relationships. And especially when it comes to when you have to deal with them and dealing with their relationships. Because what we don't want to do is have them closed off because we're being too overbearing or too controlling and not listening when they really need somebody to talk to versus us, going off the deep end because the feelings are hurt.
Right. Yeah.
So if I could get y'all to take one thing out of that, then that's what I would say. What you want to say?
No, I just said right.
No.
Loosen up.
Soften up. It's gonna be all right. Soften up and watch what you say, about women and around women in front of your daughters.
Yeah.
They're listening and soaking in everything.
Yeah. When your kids get in the car with you, turn the radio off. Have a conversation with them. Turn the radio off. Get off that phone. Take advantage of that time because one day, next thing you know, you're gonna turn your head and turn back around. They're gonna be going off to college. They're gonna be adults. So put that phone down. Enjoy the moment because it's gonna go by really quick.
Yeah. I look up and I got 30-something-year-old kids, man. It's
yeah.
Like, wow. Yeah, my kids in their mid-30s now. So the time doesn't slow down for anybody. It's gonna keep moving, it's gonna keep moving fast.
Yeah.
But it's been another good one, man. I appreciate your time this evening. It's been another good one.
I enjoy it. We're talking about things that we love, our family, man, and about being good fathers and being Black men that just changing the narrative. So it's good, always good, brother.
Yeah, we got some more stuff coming for y'all. Hey, if y'all got some ideas, some other things that y'all would like for us to talk about, please drop them below in the comments. We would definitely love to talk to some more people. And if you would like to be a guest, type guest in the comments below, and we'll contact you and set up a time for you to come and have a seat at the table. We'd love to have you on and discuss some things, Black father, with you, and keep moving. But until next week, we want to thank y'all again for your time. And let's be the best Black fathers that we can possibly be. The best thing that we can do, the easiest thing that we can do besides voting, is be fathers to our children and let them know that they are cared for, that they love, regardless of what the world says about them, that they're important to us. Yes. So until next week, thank you again. And we'll catch you on the flip side.